So far in the 2022 NASCAR season, a lot of the success that's been talked about has been that of Chevrolet. After all, they have the most wins this year and have the most dominant cars for the most part. A lot of it's been about Toyota, who, while having a lot of hit or miss success, has been really fast. But not much has been talked about Ford this year. Ford started the year pretty well at Daytona. They got wins in the dual races as well as the Daytona 500. And since then, the biggest note they've really had, aside from a couple wins here and there, has been the penalties they've accrued through the year. So earlier this week, Mark Rushbrook, the global director for Ford Performance, had said this: 4 wins is not enough. It's not acceptable. We need to get more wins. We need to have drivers further up the standings and hopefully at least 4, if not more drivers in the playoffs. So this is something I really want to talk about today. Why is Ford's NASCAR performance not acceptable? Well, like you said, there's only 4 wins they've had this year. And when you look at them, it's all been in the first half of the season. The Daytona 500 saw Austin Cindric get the win. At Phoenix, Chase Briscoe got the win, his first Cup Series victory. And then with Darlington and Gateway, it was Joey Logano taking home the trophy. So these 4 races, for the most part, are completely different. Darlington will be in the playoffs and Phoenix will be the finale, so those are big for Ford. But on top of that, they've all been early in the season when the next-gen car was still even newer than it is now. So the primary teams for Ford are the ones I think you got to look at to try and get more wins with. You got Team Penske with Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and we can even add in Harrison Burton at the Wood Brothers. Then you got Stewart-Haas Racing with Harvick, Almirola, Briscoe, and Custer, and RFK has Keselowski and Buescher. And I'd even add in front row as McDowell and Todd Gilliland have showed flashes this year. But these teams overall don't match up head-to-head with the top teams of Chevy, as well as with Joe Gibbs Racing, and I would even say 2311 matches up pretty well with RFK in front row. Rushbrook had this to say overall about Ford this year and about the next gen. He said, "We've had different strengths across different tracks. I think part of the struggle is this car is so sensitive that even when one team is taking 4 cars or 2 cars to the track with very small differences, you'll see one near the top of the board and 2 or 3 or even 4 down at the other end of the board." So that's part of it, and just understanding how sensitive it is and making sure we really can find the optimum spot for these cars to run. And so I think that is the root cause of a lot of their issues. The next gen has thrown Ford for a bit of a loop. They had the nose change earlier in the season, and it seems like Ford has been the one that's been pushing it more, as you see the 100-point penalties of Brad Keselowski and Michael McDowell. But I don't think that the next gen is simply the only thing to blame. There were a lot of Chevy teams that didn't run very well, like Petty GMS or Trackhouse last year, that with the next gen car are championship level threats, or at the very least with Petty GMS are threats to win in certain weeks. Compared to the way they were the years before, that's way better. Outside of Team Penske, really none of the Ford teams are ones who have been known to adapt and thrive in competition. Stewart-Haas Racing has fallen in recent years. RFK hasn't been really competitive since Matt Kenseth was there in 2012, or Carl Edwards in 2013 and 14. And overall, NASCAR has just created this next-gen car to tighten up the competition. So with these closer cars, it means any smaller advantage that Chevy or Toyota teams find will be more heavily magnified and shown on the racetrack. And I think that's what we've seen so far. You look at, for instance, Tapegate from Pocono this past year, and you see that Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch had a minimal change to their cars compared to the others, at least from what we know, yet those 2 cars were lightning fast in that race. So I think right now what it is Ford teams just aren't going and adapting the way that these other ones are. I mean, look at, for instance, what Brad Keselowski said about after their penalty, that he basically went through the shop and said, no more playing around with the next gen car, we're staying within the rule book. Because of that, I think it shows that they've been running pretty poorly. I mean, look at the Ford drivers right now. When you look at just strictly points, you only have 3 in the top 10. You got Blaney in 2nd, who still might miss the playoffs, Joey Logano in 7th, and then 10th is Kevin Harvick. After that, you have a group of them 14th to 16th with Cindric, Briscoe, and Almirola, and then after that, all of them are outside of the top 20. Now, granted, at 100 points of Michael McDowell, he'd be inside the top 20, but I think he's like the lone bright spot of Ford this year, having his career best season because Front Row has seemingly latched on to the new ideas of this new car. He has 9 top 10s this year, which actually matches Joey Logano and is only 1 less than Ryan Blaney and Kevin Harvick. But outside of him, there's really not a Ford driver who has excelled with this car. Yeah, Blaney is 2nd in points, but he hasn't got any wins, and it doesn't look like he's really that close to either. Yeah, Kevin Harvick is still a top 10 driver, has 10 top 10s, but he only has 4 top 5s so far. These drivers, for the most part, outside of Blaney, aren't really competing in the top 5 on a regular basis. I mean, Blaney, yes, has 7 top 5s, but after that, Logano is the closest with 5, and every other driver below him has less than 5. They're not leading many laps either, as outside of the 2 Penske teammates I keep talking about, Chase Briscoe is the only Ford driver to lead over 100 laps this season, and a majority of those were at his win at Phoenix. So overall, Ford has just not run up front, and it's just gotten worse as the seasons went on. Now, like I said, the next gen is a big part of it, but I don't think it's the only part of it. I think that there are a couple ways that you can look at this from team perspectives. For instance, RFK has been subpar for years. A lot of us thought that maybe they'd get better with Brad Keselowski, but that's showing not to be the truth. And it shouldn't be too shocking that they're not all that great this year. Then you also have to add in the fact that Ford has every single rookie in Cup right now: Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton, and Todd Gilliland. Also, SHR has been falling off for years. The next gen and 2022 did not just magically make that happen all of a sudden. So seeing the fact that they are 10th, 15th, 16th, and 25th with Cole Custer, well, that is not very surprising. And also, even though Front Row has shown great flashes, they are still a mid-pack team, and people need to remember that. If they're going to be a team that competes week in and week out, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years for them to get there. All of this leaves only 2 Ford drivers, Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, as the 2 that should be the competitive ones. And of course, they are up in front of the rest of these guys by a pretty wide margin. Currently, at the moment, Ford makes up 4 of the playoff spots. You have spots taken up by Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, and Joey Logano, and then on the bubble line is Ryan Blaney at the moment, though he still is kind of safe. So 4 drivers are in right there. Meanwhile, with Toyota, 5 drivers are in, and they have 5 wins, and Chevrolet has 6 drivers in at the moment with 13 total wins. So really, it's pretty even across the board with manufacturers qualifying, but like the representative from Ford had said, it's about winning. They need to win more. The bright spot for you Ford fans, I'm not going to leave you on a down note, is the fact that Ford is very fast on the flat tracks, like Phoenix, where it matters in November. Qualify someone in the Final 4? Well, it might be a Ford champion this year, regardless of the struggles. But with that, I'm going to leave it all to you. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. What is causing Ford's lack of performance? And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you to all my channel members for your continued support, and until next time, have a good one.